like to call the meeting to order at 6:05. Announcement of items to be discussed in closed session. We didn't have any action items in closed session. And then also, if you have any comments for the board and you're on live stream, let's fill those. If you can fill those out now, because it takes time for some of the comments to get to us. So you're going to do that, indicate what your subject is and what, if it's a business item, a consent agenda item, things like that. So send your messages in early for technology purposes, so we have to make sure that we get your questions before we get to that item. So, because if your question gets to the item after we've discussed it, we won't be reopening the item to discuss it. Flag salute. Mrs. Huggins, would you lead us in the flag salute?
Salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that brings us to the agenda item of adopting the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? We have a motion by Mr. Bruno. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mrs. Pope. Do we have any discussion on the item? Any public input on the item? Not seeing or hearing any discussion that we can general consent this, right, Scott? Even though there's only four. All right. So general consent on adopting the agenda. All right. So that brings us to organization reports. First one, CUTA, Mrs. Mason.
Hi, good evening, and everybody out there. Everybody in the district watching tonight's school board meeting.
Well, thank you for that.
Literally every teacher's probably tuning in right now. So I wanted to thank the school board for having me speak tonight. Earlier this week, I shared the certificated staff concerns with the board in an email, and I've gotten several emails in reply from board members. But to sum it up, roughly 80% of our members prefer a January 4th or later return to on-campus instruction in the hybrid model. This allows time for all the tech that Craig has ordered to actually arrive in the warehouse, because everything, of course, is on back order, get dispersed to the sites, and for trainings to occur, and all other preparations needed to provide a safe environment for students and staff to safely return to campus. And then I'm guessing you may have received many, many emails from our staff, certificated staff members, and that was the result of a general membership meeting that was held last week. And they asked, what can we do to let the board know our concerns, what we would like to see for our return to campus. And so I said, email them. They have a district email. Did you know that? And they didn't know that. So I'm sure you've gotten many, many emails. So if you had any questions about them, I'd be happy to answer about the email specifically, or the information that was shared in the survey. Okay, and then last month at the CUTA, we had a special meeting where we were able to recommend 2 candidates for the school board position, and CUTA held our voting last week, and we recommended Delray Pope and Nancy Anderson on the November election ticket as a CUTA recommendation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa, and I'd like to thank CUTA for the endorsement.
Delray, I was just, mine's loud. On yours, you might want to try and get a little bit closer when you talk. I know with your mask. Apparently, I'm there you go.
Thank you, CUTA, for the endorsement.
All right.
Absolutely.
That brings us to CSEA, Mrs. Huggins.
Good evening. We've been meeting virtually with our chapter meetings for several months now, and it seems to be working out really well, and I'm kind of hoping we continue that method even after we all come back in person, because it allows us to be able to talk to more people that are, because of all of our schedules, it's kind of hard to get all classified together at 4:30 in the afternoon. So it's been kind of nice to be able to have a change that works well for everybody. This morning we began voting on the health and welfare benefit agreement we reached with the district. The voting window will close on Saturday, October 31st. And I would like to take this time to wish Mr. Wilson and his family the very best as they begin a new adventure. Thank you for your years of service on the school board. It has been a pleasure to work with you. Many classified employees are concerned about the details and decisions leading to the returning to in-person instruction. We did not do a survey asking folks to choose the date they feel is reasonable to return to in-person instruction. Over the past several months, we have shared the results of our many surveys and the concerns that were expressed. We have encouraged employees to reach out to the board and express their concerns. We appreciate that the voices of all employees are heard and considered as the decisions are made and plans are finalized. While we know that whatever decision is reached may not please everyone, we trust that the decision addresses the needs of the students and families while ensuring the safety of our employees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
And thank you for your well wishes. I love working with you guys. So,
Trustee Wilson, just a clarification. I think when you had asked, or someone had asked previously, Mrs. Mason said, is there any public or questions? We did receive a couple from the public.
okay.
I'm not sure if that's in order to have the public, or it does relate, I believe, to item C. So possibly, would you like us to read that as public comment?
Yeah, let's do that on item C. That way, those people still get to make their comments, and we're moving on to the adjournment too. All right, that brings us to committee updates, facility update. Craig Deason.
All right, good evening. How about that sound today? Nice. Just a few things to report for the full-day kindergarten that's coming up here in, actually, hopefully we're going to start in November. You've got 3 contracts in front of you tonight. Okay, one of them is for the greatest maximum price for the lease-back contract, which is with the contractor. You have the DSA inspector and the testing inspector contract. So if those get approved tonight, we plan on breaking ground November 1st. And then how far we continue past that also depends on your decision that you make with opening schools back up. And then the other thing that we're working on right now with the kindergarten project is the flexible furniture. We've gotten 2 bids for the 21st century furniture that's going to go into those classrooms, so we're kind of zeroing in on getting ready for when the buildings are there, that we can fill them up with good stuff. The CTE applications, we met with the architect. Our first meeting with the architect was today, and we started talking about conceptual design. So we'll be able to share with you that information down the road. And then November 11th, we'll be applying for our funding for that project. And then with our new school up in Sierra Vista, we did turn in our CDE application for approval of the space that we are planning on using to be approved as a school site. One of CDE's jobs that they do is they approve every school site with a lot of different things that they look at. They did have a few questions, so we're responding to those questions, and we're hoping for CDE approval later this week or next week, because after that we'll start working on the land acquisition, and we're hoping to bring the land acquisition agreement to you in November and purchase that property. And then finally, the architect is going to be bringing a conceptual design to you and sharing it with you in November. So that's basically all I have, unless you have any questions, but I did bring you a draft conceptual design you can take a look at, just in case you have any questions next month when they present what the 10,000-foot view of that school site's going to look like. Questions?
Hammy. Thank you, Craig.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley.
Reports, presentations, Mr. Jordan, Williams Uniform Complaint Quarterly Reporting.
So I'm here to report there were no Williams complaints this quarter. And that concludes the shortest agenda item on the
I'm sorry.
You're so lucky.
You missed the whole thing. I know, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you. Now that brings us to the agenda item that are comments from the audience regarding items not on the agenda. Do we have any, Carol? And are there any in the audience this evening?
I don't have any calls.
Okay, not seeing any here.
Okay, so this is the only one that is actually titled Public Comments. It says, it is from Karen. I am disappointed that a board member who doesn't believe in wearing masks and refuses to follow the policy of the school site by not wearing one has such a strong vote in determining the safety of students and staff.
Okay, well, that's why we're the United States. We have differing opinions. So, board and superintendent reports. Mrs. Anderson?
I would just like to reiterate thank you to CSDA and CUTA for endorsing me, and Delray as well. And hopefully we'll be off to a good year and we'll get all these problems ironed out, working together on it. Jill?
Delray?
I would like to reiterate, thank you CSEA, and thank you once again to CUTA for the endorsements. It really means a lot, and I appreciate it, and let's wish us all luck.
Mr. Bruno?
I just wanted to say that over the past few days, I have received a lot of emails, primarily from teachers. I've been contacted by some parents, and I just absolutely love it and encourage any community member, staff member, whatever, if you have something on your mind, let us know. The better informed we are, the better informed decisions we can make. And please, let's continue the engagement.
And Mr. Laird?
So, Mr. Wilson, I'm not sure what you're going to say for you, so I might reserve like 2 minutes of my time for after you, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I just want to take the opportunity to thank staff. This has been a very unique and trying year. And I don't like the collective sometimes just thanking everyone, but I like to thank staff because so many people are doing so many unique things for the benefit of our community and our students and our staff. But I did want to call out a couple. It was funny, it dawned on me yesterday as I was leaving at 5 o'clock, and I looked over at Center High School and I saw some parks or some vehicles in the parking lot. And I won't say all their names, but I want to acknowledge the coaches that have been out working for the last few months that are doing conditioning with our students. For those students, they approached myself and Mr. Ferguson and said, hey, could we do this? It met the guidelines, the permits. We had some very strenuous guidelines. We said to do that. And I just want to acknowledge and thank them for doing that because I think it's a great outlet for our students that want to do and have physical activity. And along those same lines, I know another activity that's happening is we're working on our play. And so I want to acknowledge and appreciate the staff member that's pushing forward with that and having that available for our students. To me, it just, as Mr. Bruno pointed out, there's a lot of emails that we receive, and some are our form emails, but a lot of them are heartfelt in the beginning and at the end. And as I read through those, it just reminded me of what a great place we are working in and we get to be a part of. And with that, I think it's important, out of all this, we will only become stronger together, and we will continue to do what is best for the students. And with that, I also want to add, I recognize that we're going through difficult times with the decision that the board will be considering tonight. There's a lot in our world that seems to be upside down for us as individuals, as a collective group. And with the holidays approaching too, I think that adds one more layer. So I think as staff, as all of us, really being aware of how we can support our families, our students, and each other during this time that could be extremely difficult for people. So with that, I will leave that and turn it back to Mr. Wilson.
Well, I don't have much except to say thank you. Too many thank yous to say to everybody individually. Obviously, I've been around here a long time. Never planned on moving. Some different things happened, so I just wanted to say thank you. Obviously, I take a lot of memories. I went to high school here. I will miss a lot of people. But other than that, I wish all of you well. I've got an adventure I never planned on taking, but if I got to take it, I'm going to make the most fun I can with it. So I just want to say thank you. I wish you well. I obviously hope this district much success. So thank you.
And just briefly, Mr. Wilson, to reclaim a couple minutes, I just wanted to thank you. You know, I met you, gosh, what is it, 12 years ago as you entered the board. We were going through a pretty tumultuous time as a school board, as a district, and you came on. And one of the things that I've always admired about you is the decorum and the way that you run these meetings and really kind of keep that order. I've always appreciated that and want to thank you for that. Plus, we've over the years had quite a lot of conversations around school business and other business. And I know I will miss having those conversations, but I wish you and your family great luck, success, and if I ever go to Florida, maybe I'll try and swing by. And although it might be out of order, typically, just so the community knows, when a president of our board ends his or her term, we always award them with a gavel to commemorate the year that he or she spent as the board president. So since I might have known you might have been leaving, we did go ahead and get a gavel made up for you, even though you are about 2 months shy. But just acknowledging that Mr. Wilson for his 20 years president. So we'll present that to you and wish you and your family great success and happiness.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
A motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Pope. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mrs. Anderson. Do we have any discussion by the board on this? Any audience participation? Anything on the computer? All right, we have a motion, we have a second, no discussion. Do we have general consent? Looks like we do. All right. That brings us to business items. Business item A, architect selection, award and contract. Do we have a motion on business item A?
A motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Pope. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Bruno. Do we have any discussion on this item?
Only that this item will allow us, as Mr. Deason said during his facilities report, that this would allow us to select Naughton Lewis as the architect firm that we would use to construct the 2 career technical education facilities that we'll be putting in here in the next bit of time.
Any other board comments? Have any audience comments on the item? Anything virtually? All right, so we have a motion and a second to accept the staff recommendation. Do we have general consent on this item?
Yes.
Okay. General consent on item A. That brings us to business item B. Guaranteed maximum price for the leaseback contract. We have a motion on this item.
All motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Bruno. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mrs. Pope. Do we have any board discussion, any staff input on this?
Just that this is the guaranteed maximum price, essentially budget type for this project. So we would seek your approval.
Okay. Do we have any audience comments on the item? Anything over there? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Do we have general consent? All right. So that brings us to item C. Item C is Plan 2 hybrid update and return to campus date. Sure, we'll have some comments on this, but first, do we have a motion?
I'll bring it to the floor.
Mrs. Anderson moves to bring it to the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Mr. Bruno. Go right ahead, Mr. Jordan.
All right, good evening. We're going to talk about our hybrid plan 2. I left one of these blue cover handouts in front of you there, and this is the slideshow that's going to go, Mr. Graham is going to put on the screen. We good? Okay. We tried to develop a secret code so I could tell him when to do the slides, but I'm just going to say next slide. There. So we started working on this, and this comes out of our playbook about a week after the school year ended last year, way back in by June, we had completed our first look at the playbook, our first plans, and I think it's important to know that this is a moving target. The information, the guidance that we're getting from the state and the county level is coming out sporadically. So we had a whole plan put together by July. At the very end of June, first week of July, the state came out with new guidance, SB 98, changed everything. So we're back to the drawing board. We have to come up with new plans again. Then as we're going along, guidance keeps changing on us. So this is really the third reincarnation, I guess, or incarnation of this plan. And you're going to see, even though this was printed a week ago, there's going to be some slight changes even since then, because the guidance has changed again. We got new guidance from the California Department of Ed on our engagement process just last week. That's going to change some of the ways that we do things. And if you notice, even today, the Center for Disease Control came out with new guidance for what it means to be in close proximity to around somebody else. So that may tweak some things for us as well. Things continue to change on us. Having said that, I want to commend all of the admin, the teachers, the classified, who have worked tirelessly on this. Literally all summer long, there were no vacations this year. And since then, I know we're all kind of emailing, texting, even in the middle of the night, it's going back and forth. This is on everyone's mind, and they're to be commended for their hard work and efforts towards this endeavor. All right, having said that, we're going to move on. Reset. All right, first page. So for those in TV land, that first page is a link to the playbook, which a lot of what you see tonight is going to be out of that playbook. So if you go to the second. Good. Elementary in person. Perfect. All right. So starting out, here's how this would look at the elementary level in terms of the hybrid program. The hybrid is an option for parents to send their students to school, as well as a distance learning option, full-time distance learning option. So this is the first one we're going to look at here is the elementary in-person model. So that is on campus 5 days a week. Students would attend, families who chose this, those students would attend Monday through Friday. This would be all students TK through 6 and be placed in a morning or afternoon group. Although we're still looking at our numbers coming in from the survey, there may be a possibility, at least at some sites, where it's a morning is enough to do the in-person and the afternoon would be all distance learning. The numbers are coming in, and as they come in, there's more and more families choosing distance learning. Where all efforts in that plan are going to be to assign family members so that they're in the same grouping, whether it's morning or afternoon, so that they're not having to cross over transportation-wise. Each group is going to attend approximately 2.5 hours per school day with a primary focus on English language arts and math. From an academic perspective, that's going to be the main focus. Facilities are going to be disinfected between the morning and afternoon sessions. And then in addition to that 2.5 hours, they would have students will complete independent work outside of the school day. And those little boxes off to the side of that little table explains the additional number of minutes. The combination of the in-person time and those additional minutes of independent time are the minimum that we have to show engagement for the state level. So we have to have both of those each day. We're ready to move on to slide 3, I believe it is. We're good. Thank you, Eugene. So now we're on the purple. I think that's purple, whatever color that is. Elementary distance learning. This is for families that chose the full-time distance learning, not wanting their students on campus. So we are adjusting this slightly. This will be different than it is now, slightly. Families that have opted into this may be required to have a new teacher. And that is because the number of students that wanting the distance learning is overwhelming. There's a lot of families that want that. And since they want that, we have to move some teachers over to be those distance learning teachers specifically. It's too much of an ask for our teachers to do both a full-time distance learning kid and an in-person kid. That is an incredible amount of prep time. What we have found is that no matter how long you've been in the classroom as a teacher, It is like learning everything all over again. All the new software platforms, the hardware, even grading, going through Google Classroom is different. Even the simplest thing as attendance is completely different now for this year only. So that we can claim that the attendance they gave, it's not called 88 for this year, but our engagement. And it's taking, I'm talking to high school teachers, it's taking another hour and a half a week to compile it, because it's a completely different formula. It's not just in your seat or not anymore. It's a compilation of seat online with your class, as well as a time equivalent of an assignment that you got for that day that has to be clearly delineated from that day to be able to prove to the auditors that they were engaged for that day. Sorry if my mask is funny on here. So distance learning, students would attend class online Monday through Friday. There would also be a 60-minute online office hours with teachers per day, and that would be for one-on-one or small group assistance. There would be at least 30 minutes of intervention time. That would be our rotation, tier 2, those kind of things in small group or individual sessions. In addition to the whole class live instruction in the office hours. So that's an additional support for kids. And then offline independent study work will be assigned by the teacher according to the grade levels. You'll see again on the table to the right, the additional minutes. Now we are currently putting together a new job description for that distance learning teacher to clearly delineate what the expectations are for that. Right now it's an hour online. That is going to increase. It's going to be more than 1 hour online. Right now, preliminarily, we're looking at 2 to 2.5 hours of online with the student to get more interaction with the family.
Mr. Jordan, can I clarify? And I don't know, would it be helpful to hold our questions or comments, or would it be because on the elementary perspective, can you elaborate a little bit on the idea that the hour is the hour like I have to sit in front of the computer for 1 whole hour for elementary, or can the teachers break that time up?
So we know attention spans are short. Attention spans are short in the adult world, let alone kids. So it doesn't mean you're going to be online 2 straight hours at a time. It may be a 15, 20-minute little instructional thing here, then have the kid go do some independent work, then come back on in a half hour. It's going to be broken down. It's not realistic that the kid's going to be on for 2 hours straight at the third level. That's just not realistic. Does that answer anything? Okay.
Related question. Regarding the independent work time, if we increase the amount of online instruction time, would we be decreasing the amount of their independent work time?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So that it would start to resemble the in-person.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. There are a minimum number of minutes at each grade level that are required. So K2, it's 100, K is 180, 1, 2, you're looking at 230, and then it goes 240 from that point on up. Minimum minutes. We ready to go to the next slide?
I have a question for you, Mike.
Okay.
Mr. Jordan. And it just, when you said it, it just made me think that with staff, so you had said some are going to be going to distance learning. One of the things, and when we went and met with the school in Florida, it was total parent choice. Like, if you wanted to be in the classroom, you were in the classroom. If you wanted to do distance learning, it was distance learning from the classroom, like the students would be able to see in the classroom. So, but the way you said it sounds like we're going to have 2 different sets of teachers. Is that the plan, to have 2 different sets of teachers, or are we going to do the same thing where if the student wants to be at home but watch the teacher on the camera, they can, but if they want to, I mean, sounds like a lot of extra staff to do that, the way you said it.
So there won't be extra staff that we'd have to hire, because you got, right now, and we're going to see a slide here pretty quick, about 35% of our elementary kids are going to stay complete distance learning. So those class sizes are pulled down, and those kids are pulled out, and those teachers are pulled out as well, and that's why you might have to have a different teacher. What you're talking about is synchronous learning. Right now, we don't have that at the elementary. We are going to have that when I go through the high school. We are going to have that option, yes. We are also using that option with some of our cohorts, like the one here at Rutgers. Ms. Price is using the synchronous. Good? Okay. Yeah. All right. should be on the middle school in person now, moving on to Riles. So again, there is a distance learning full-time option and an on-campus 5 days a week option. Again, even though this was printed a week ago, we are looking at the numbers that are approaching 50%, where about 45% of kids at the middle school want to do this full-time distance learning. It's not 100% confirmed yet, but we're looking at the possibility where we could do the in-person in the morning and then all the distance learning in the afternoon. So it's going to be a little bit different than here based on what our survey results are coming back.
Is this the AB schedule, a block schedule? Or we're not doing that? You said it's morning and afternoon?
Correct. So yeah, we would be on an AB in that, yes. But it's a 6-period day instead of the 8 from before. So students would attend class again Monday through Friday. Students would be split into a morning and afternoon shift. And in this case, again, we're preliminarily looking at the possibility that we could just do all distance learning in the morning. Excuse me, reverse that. All in-person learning in the morning and all distance learning in the afternoon. I think I just did a Willy Wonka on you there. Morning and afternoon sessions will be approximately 3 hours. We're looking at really about 2.5 to 3 is what a session would be, and then there'd be a break between. Students would be attending 3 classes per day on the AB schedule, and we'll have a link to that. There'd also be 1 hour of independent work a week, so we're looking at 20 minutes per class that you're in for those 3 periods for that day. And then facilities would be disinfected, obviously.
Question. All the disinfecting work in between, it seems to me the teachers are going to be busy preparing for in between, work. Who's going to be doing that?
So we've got down now to where there's a sanitizer that I believe it's 1 to 2 minutes it'll dry. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Deason.
It won't dry, but it will kill the virus, or eliminate the virus.
So the idea is the teacher would just go down. Remember, there's only going to have half your class. So you're going to have somewhere around 12 to 15. Just spray down the desk between class periods. And then it would kill, I said dry, my apologies, kill the germ, or the virus, excuse me. And then at the full-time distance learning families, that shows that would be full-time again. They would attend class online Monday through Friday. They're expected to participate live online independent work for a total of at least 240 minutes. So they would be taking their classes just from home as they are now. Good? All good? All right, keep going there. Thank you. All right, so moving on to Center High. This is where things are going to be not slightly different, considerably different. So Center High School will be continue on their AB schedule. Now the difference at the high school level is we're going to do what let's talk about synchronous learning. So a kid who chose to be in class would go to their normal A day or B day, so it'd be 4 periods. The kid who is on distance learning would be just videoing in, linking into that class and watching the instruction live. And we have it set up so that there would be some question and answer times for those students as well within that class period. So the class periods are approximately 90 minutes. Students will be split into what we're calling a blue and a gold, which is just so we can split the kids in half and create enough social distancing. They're going to go on a rotating schedule. I'm going to explain that in just a minute. One group will attend in person on campus while the other group participates online from home. So again, we can't have all those kids together at the same time. There's too many in a classroom. We couldn't social distance. So half will stay home. So the blue, think of blue like an A day. They'll come on A day. The B kids will be videoing in on that day, and then it'll flip-flop. The next day, the B kids will show up, and the A kids will be videoing into those same classes. The distance learning kids will be videoing in the whole time. And I'm going to show you that rotation. We have to switch that every 3 weeks to make sure that everybody gets in person to an A and B schedule. So at minimum, they're going to have 2 days per week following a 2-week rotation. 2 days on campus a week, minimum. So they'll go one week 3, next week 2, and then flip-flop. So the rotation, and I don't know how in-depth you want me to go on this. Basically, at the end of that 3rd week, you have to flip-flop so that everybody gets to go to their 8A, everybody gets to go to their B-Day.
What about lunch period?
So we're going to be split into 2 lunches. Right now, as of this morning, and it's actually risen even from the slide that had come out a week ago, we're at 48% of our students in Center High are going to stay in distance learning. So when you split that into 2, now you're down to half. You split that into 2 lunches, now you're down basically to a quarter. So we have enough room on campus to maintain social distancing during the lunch period.
Thank you.
That is the only site that will have lunch on campus. Everyone else is grab and go, what we're calling it. Basically, you grab your lunch and you take it home. You okay? You good? And I've already talked about the agreement, and I think that's good. If they opted out, they can do the full-time distance learning. That's not a problem. Again, they'll be synchronously going in, seeing the classes live.
Now, if a family opts for distance learning or opts for in-person, are they allowed to change their mind later if circumstances for them personally change?
It would be helpful if they stuck to it, but obviously we can't judge what's going to happen. And things are going to come up. We're going to have some flexibility. And having said that, we've got to make sure we maintain the social distancing in the class. So it may take us a few days to get it worked out and make sure that we don't overload class. So for example, if we had 100 kids all of a sudden want to come back, and they're all freshmen, all of a sudden our freshman classes are going to have 2 days of social distance. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Hey, what about when kids are put under quarantine and they all of a sudden they have to stay at home and go back to learning at home?
So at the high school level, they would just go online, like the full-time distance learning kids, because that's synchronous, they're going to see the same thing. We came up with, there must be 15 different scenarios. Teachers quarantined, students aren't. Kids quarantined, but not everyone. There are so many different variables that happen, and it changes between elementary, middle, and high school on how it's going to work. Honestly, because of the synchronous part of this, it's going to be a little bit easier if a student is out of quarantine.
It has to be fluid because it's...
Yep. Because it's going to be, I hate to say that, and that's every teacher's worst fear, is that it's going to be a revolving door, but that's going to happen. I think we have to just accept, to an extent, that's going to happen. It's going to be a little more difficult when a teacher is out of quarantine, and that's going to create some issues. But we do have protocols set for that.
Ms. Mason has a question.
Just to
Classes
clarify,
keep
Mr.
falling, sorry.
Jordan, just to clarify, when you say students will be eating lunch at the high school, will they be in teacher's room? Will they have a duty-free lunch?
They will have a duty-free lunch. Yes.
Okay. Without students in the room?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Worked on that this morning.
Correct. Okay, we okay? Okay, so again, this was as of a week ago. We sent this survey out over the holiday, the October break. And we're almost there, but we don't have all parent surveys back. So again, I come in the admin, they've been reaching out and making phone calls to the staff, the class fights, and getting everybody's results in so that we have accurate numbers. We can't do any plan until we have everybody's choice of whether they want to go distance or whether they want to go in person. So this, even though again, it was a few days ago this was printed, it's changed a little bit.
Excuse me, may I make a comment or a question?
Yes.
Or a comment. So it was stated on social media that why doesn't the school district just take the families that don't respond and place them in A, distance learning, or B, the in-class instruction?
Well, one, we want to make sure everybody has the choice they need for childcare, for transportation, for their own personal belief, whether they want their kids to come back in person or not. And we want to make sure, unfortunately, sometimes we don't have everybody's accurate information, phone numbers and so forth. So we want to make sure everybody has their options.
I thank you for that, because it was also stated that the district actually doesn't read any of the surveys or the information that we send to the parents. So I'm
I'm glad you said that because I know that you do or we do. So thank you for stating that.
I can tell you this data is a deep dive for administrators because this is how you build your master schedule and how you build your rosters for classes. We have to know. Even a 5% difference can totally throw everything on.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan.
So we're being diligent to get everybody. This is the elementary level. This is the first slide. We are now, Eugene, I'm sorry. Elementary.
We're on elementary.
We good? Yep, okay. Mr. Graham, sorry. 37.9%, the red color is the number that have decided to do full-time distance learning. 62.1 are saying that they would like to come back full-time. Now, this was for the first kids. You'll see up on the top it says first student, with all students in the family included, the percentage drops to about 35. So on the survey, there's families that have multiple kids. I'm only showing you the slide, or I have like 6 different slides just for elementary. When we compile all those results together, first kid, second kid, third kid, fourth kid, sometimes fifth kid, it comes to right around 35% want to stay home distance learning full-time.
And while he's going to that too, the other piece will be is somebody say, well, wait a minute, do we have that many students in this grade span or this? We had parents who very happily filled it out twice the same or multiple times the same, which is great, but we also had people changing their minds. So they might have picked something on October 12th when it first came out, but then by October 16th maybe something, and so they changed. So the principals are actually going through that, sorting it by individual, like Mr. Bruno, oh, we have 3 for him. Well, one day it was this, so we're trying to keep it as the most accurate. So you will see in some of these the numbers seem higher than we might have enrollment. That's because some people made multiple inputs that we're sorting through.
Middle school. All right, so we're here at Riles. We're just shy of 45% wanting to stay home. Not wanting to stay home, that didn't come out right. Distance learning, doing full-time distance learning. And 55.3 coming back full-time. We go to the high school. This number, as of this morning, I got an update on this morning, and it's now at a little over 48% of the high school students are going to stay full-time distance learning. So that number's increased. Since this slide, again, we're reaching out and we're getting everybody's input because it makes a difference in terms of what the class rosters look like. So we're almost at half at the high school. Or, excuse me, at Center High School. Then the next slide will follow the other high school. And again, you're right about 48% again at McClellan High School.
Makes you wonder how many of those just don't want to come back to school at all and would stay that way even if we insisted they come back.
Yeah, I have no way of knowing.
Yeah. There's some of them out there that just don't want to come back to a building.
It is interesting that there are some kids who perhaps struggle a little bit on in-person that are thriving in this distance learning, and vice versa, obviously. Going on, staff results, please. So going on to the staff results, we also at the same time sent out a survey to our staff asking, are they, classified and certificate, are they planning on to come back if we go into in-person, where they're going to be in contact with people? And so we got almost 10% of the staff are going to go through what's called the interactive process with Mr. Grimes and the personnel officer, saying either they have underlying conditions or a spouse or somebody who lives in their house have underlying conditions, and they're looking into their options. Is there a way I can take leave? We've had a couple of retirements recently. We have a couple of people who are saying they're going to retire if they go in person because they have underlying conditions, or there's some other things. So 10%, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Grimes, is about 40 employees. That's a significant number. And that's a significant number, especially when you're looking, we have to replace those people before we go back into the in-person. That's hard. Teachers are hard to find right now. They're not in abundance, and especially special ed. We're working with Maxim and some other agencies that are job placement agencies, and they can't even find candidates. It's very difficult.
Mike, I can add a little, just for clarification, that 10% includes several requests to continue if they can, even
So just, I don't know if people can hear that at home, so really what Mr. Grimes is adding, the idea that some of the number, the 42, 44, whatever it is, some of them are actually just requests for distance learning. It might not be an interactive process, medical reason, but they be seeking that.
Our staff has turned over and become younger over the last few years. We seem to be having a COVID baby boom. We're having a number of staff going out on maternity leave at this time as well. So we're trying to replace those. And I don't mean that badly. That's a great thing for them. It's fantastic. But it's people we need to replace so that we have teachers in classes.
Can I address Mr. Grimes for a second? Mr. Grimes, if these teachers that wish to distance learn or distance teach,
If we're not able to fill that, will they then retire?
That will be individual, option. We will show them what their options are. There are different types of leaves available, some specifically to this COVID, and others just through contract, through red code and so forth. Some may choose to use all their leave that they have. Some have enough leave actually be at the end of the year that way. Others may retire, so it will really be an individual decision. However, perhaps to what you're asking as well, there's no guarantee that we can promise everyone who has requested distance teaching position. There's no way we can guarantee each of them will have that opportunity. We're working with the union right now in negotiations to set up what that criteria and those priorities are based on the laws and the directives we've been given from the health department in California. And we'll go in that order and accommodate as many as we can, making sure that we maintain the integrity of our programs here in the district, as far as proper credentials, class sizes, and that sort of thing.
And the 10%, that is mostly certificated?
Mostly, but there are a number of classified as well. But most of the classified would fall into the IS or ISPH realm. A lot of our other classified are already back working. Our custodians, food service, office staff, a lot of them have been here and working for a long time. But the ISs have been more at home or online at this point.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
I apologize, I put my back to the camera. I'm not an actor on purpose, I'd be terrified. Guiding considerations. Good, thank you. All right, so these are the things that we're trying to think of when coming into to dates to come back. So Sacramento County has cleared our return to in-person instruction with specific guidelines by Sacramento County Public Health and the California Department of Public Health. So we've gone out of the purple tier. Now that we're in that tier, we are cleared to open again. Doesn't mean we have to open right now, this day, but eventually we've got to come back. As part of Senate Bill 98, our funding will continue as long as, for distance learning, as long as we are told by the county we have to remain in distance learning. Now, they've set no parameters for how long you have between the time that you're cleared to go and you actually have to come back. Elementary school's first trimester ends on November 6th. The secondary school semester ends on December 18th, so right before the winter break. We want to make sure that families have at least 2 weeks or more notification prior to a return date so that they get child care, aligned, transportation, whatever they need to do. Next one, please. Thank you. We want to make sure we have sufficient personal protective equipment and sanitation inventory at each school site so that everyone's safe, students, staff, and that's everything. And Mr. Deese has done a fantastic job and he's been working since the summer. There's masks, face shields, gowns, sanitizer bottles. They've got a backpack sanitizer thing for the custodian. I mean, there's all kinds of PPE that is put onto the sites.
Right. And to clarify, we have that stuff, correct?
Correct. Yes.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
We have those materials that he mentioned. It's
Correct.
not that we need to get them. We have an abundance right now, which is great.
And then obviously we need to have nutrition and transportation services, make sure they're prepared with as few minor adjustments as possible. What is still happening? What needs to happen? Sorry, next slide. Sorry. What needs to happen right now before we can open? We need a health tech at every site. We are required to have isolation rooms for any students or staff who have symptoms. We need at least 4, preferably 5 health techs. We have been advertising for that. I only have 2 applicants, although they're great applicants. And I have interviews with them tomorrow. But these are people that are going to man the isolation room. So when a kid they're at school and all of a sudden they start having symptoms or a fever, we need to isolate them until they're picked up by their parents.
What's the requirement for their license?
They
have to be an LVN, RN?
No, we have an RN on staff. Obviously, it'd be fantastic if they were an RN or an LVN or a CNA or whatever.
CNA even, okay.
Yep. But that is not a requirement for the job.
Are they full-time positions?
These are right now 4-hour-a-day positions. It's possible they'll go to 6 hours. We need at least 4, again 5, because we know those people are going to be exposed the most. Because they're going to be dealing with kids with symptoms the most, not just COVID, but the flu and everything else that goes through schools.
That's true.
Right now I have 2 applicants. I'm going to interview those 2 tomorrow. But that means I'm still short 2. I need to find 2 more. So that's an open job out there right now. I'm also working with Maxim, which is a staffing agency, but they can't find anybody either. These people are in short supply.
What's the pay scales one? Are we giving them enough?
That I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
The posting for that is in your email, Ms. Anderson, so I'm happy to show you tomorrow. The posting came out and it was reposted again yesterday, I believe.
This what?
The posting is in your email for sure. We reposted it again, so I know an email went out to all staff as well as public.
Yeah, I just don't know off the top of my head.
Interesting. Has there been anything said, or have you gotten any reports from the health department? There's a certain disease, I'll call it, that the kids are getting that's connected with COVID, that affects the nerves. They were worried about that with the elementary kids. And then there's a second disease I heard about last night that started last year, and the doctors are worried about it coming back this year. That's associated with another bacterial infection that affects the muscles of kids. And the one mom said her daughter was 2 and she was jumping on the bed, and then all of a sudden her legs went out from under her and she was paralyzed. It was that fast. So there's a couple of different things out there that these kids could pass around, and they just don't know where they're coming from at this point.
So as far as county health addressing that with us, or California Public Health, I have not received any direction on those. I've heard news reports of that as well, but that's something we're in contact with County Public Health all the time. I mean, I've communicated almost seems like every other day at least I'm getting a message or we're in a meeting. So that would be something that we will hear about if it starts circulating our community.
Interesting.
Nancy, Ms. Anderson, I looked up the job posting and the health tech is paid $15.25 up to $20.65 an hour. So up to $20.65 an hour.
Thank you.
Could you repeat that like on the microphone? I couldn't.
$20.65 an hour up to.
Yeah, between $15 to $20 an hour.
Oh.
Between $15 and $20 an hour. Look online now.
Thank you.
See, you are a TV person.
Pitch man. The next one, the next bullet, whatever it is, the hiring of replacement teachers. So for those in the interactive process, we want to make sure that we have teachers, credentialed teachers in place before we come back. Otherwise, we're going to start with a lot of subs, and not that subs aren't good. Subs are fantastic, but we want a credentialed teacher for a smooth start to when we come back. It is crucial that we have a smooth start when we bring kids back on campus.
We're not going to get benefits if they do die.
Next bullet, finalizing all family results. We still have a few out. We've been working diligently. Again, I commend that the sites, the admin and classified on the sites, that they're just been busting it out. They're getting all kinds of contacts with these families and make sure everybody's get their choice known. Then with this information, we've got to adjust the classes and the schedules based on those survey results. So as you can see, even since a few days ago when this was printed, some of the things like at the middle school, potentially at the elementary, they're going to shift a little bit because of the numbers coming back. The numbers are different than they were when we originally did this survey back in July. Some people have changed their minds. Well, a lot of people have changed their minds, one way or the other. And then finally, we need to finalize our MOU with our CUTA, with our teachers. We have a process we're going through right now with a number of meetings. We're getting there, but we have some things that we need to work out and get our MOU in place. So having said that, we came up with 3 potential return dates. So originally we talked about November 9th being the earliest possible date we could come back. That would be 12 distance learning days from today. There would be 24 in-person school days till winter break. Second one is November 30th. There's 21 distance learning days between tomorrow and that date. And again, remember, there's no school for that Thanksgiving break. It'd be then 15 in-person school days till winter break.
Can you give us the dates of those breaks?
The Thanksgiving break is November 23rd to the 27th. And then the winter break, I believe, starts on December 19th. Yep. Saturday, December 3rd, January 3rd to January 3rd. And then the third option is January 5th. January 4th is the Monday. That's a teacher work day. Coming back on January 5th, that would be there be 36 distance learning days between tomorrow and the end of the semester for the high school level. We split semester at the trimester, at the elementary level.
There's one correction that we didn't talk about, and that's the special ed kids that some of them have been brought back, I understand. And there may be others that need to be brought back, or I don't know what's been addressed as far as that goes.
So we did start, thank you, Ms. Anderson, for pointing that out. We did start bringing back cohorts. We started with 3 classes of students, 1 at each level, elementary, middle, and high. We have plans to start increasing that and also increasing our services to our EL students, our foster youth, and our homeless students, because that was specifically called out within that. So those are all in the mix. And if we have a date tonight of when we return, we'll start mixing that up. It also depends on the agreement with our teachers. Right now we are doing it voluntarily. We had 3 people we appreciate who volunteered to be back. Some of those classes we got most of the kids back. A couple classes we only got 2 or 3 that wanted to come back at this point. But we will look at that, so looking at those, some specialized populations.
So are we just going to like set them up in one classroom somewhere?
Well, these are typically, we're starting with the self-contained rooms, so they're already in a classroom, so I might have 15 students that are specific to me. Our mainstream students who might be on an IEP, would be a part of the quote, regular classroom when we would return with that classroom.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jordan,
Yes.
it looks like you've gone through all your points, and the last point of this was board discussion and directions. I guess the question I really have for you, since say everything is changing daily, everything is fluid, what really are we voting on if everything's changing on a daily basis?
I certainly have an opinion on everything, so if that is it, are you asking for my opinion on?
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, like, I won't come up with an example, but, you know, it's, if you say we have option A, B, and C, and if we just, but this is what's happened since March. If we look at the page, it says whether or not we're cleared by the county. We haven't done anything on our own since March 14th, and we've only taken direction from the county. So the question is, if we're only taking direction from the county, what really are we voting on?
Yeah, so the consideration that you guys would vote on tonight would be, when do we want to return to this hybrid model based on all the information that you guys have received, from our plan to any other feedback or input. So what we're looking for is guidance on an actual date, because unfortunately, to your point, things seem to keep changing. We need a date that we can say we want to work towards that date, so we can make sure that everything is in place. We can get the staff. There's a lot to do within that, but having a date would be very helpful. Now, saying that, in the world we've come to live in, you could pick date X, and we drop back into the purple tier, and that date's going to be pushed out. So realistically, if conditions remain the same, we're looking for that date from you guys on that.
Well, I'll start the board discussion then.
Ms. Anderson, before we do, just a point of clarity, Mr. Wilson, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm hoping you can do some of the comments we've received tonight. When a board meets in public and they receive public comment, that comment is usually comments, not an interactive question. Can you address that as far as like testifying? Because I don't want people to think if they ask a question, the board may or may not be able to answer the question. Do you mind just addressing that?
So I think you're allowed to address somebody that asks a question. I just think in the modern day where people are so rude with each other, most people say don't say anything, because then it ends up breaking down. I have the opinion that if you don't answer somebody, that they think you're just ignoring them. So I will usually try to address them in a respectful way, but I think there are just so many people that haven't. So a lot of boards take positions that, well, you can't interact with them. Well, of course, we're not in Brown Act violation. We've got everybody here. It's an agendized meeting, so we can have interaction with our constituents. That's what the whole American system is about, is representing your constituents. So I think some people put that out there because they don't want a meeting breaking down into an argument. But I have the opinion that if you don't answer people, they feel ignored and like the whole process bypassed them. So I'd rather have a respectful discussion. But I think the hardest thing about this tonight, though, is probably, if I'm a parent and I want my kid back on date X, we agree and say date X, but if everything's fluid, so it sounds to me like we want to set a goal that even if we set that goal because we want staff to be able to prepare to come back, that doesn't mean we're coming back on that date. So we're not really voting on a date. We're voting to get everybody prepped and rolling. Because we could say November 9th, we could say May 14th. But if we don't have the clearance, we're not going back to school. So so I think this is more about, can we give clarity to staff rather than are we actually voting on a date to come back? And if I'm wrong on that, I want you to tell me I'm wrong on that, because I don't think we're going to set a date and come back on a date, because we're going to wait on the county, correct?
So I think what you're asking is basically the same thing we're asking for. We would want action from you to say, if everything is golden, everything's in line, we want school to start back on this day.
Okay.
So direction is probably a better term.
But I think for both staff and parents who are watching, that needs to be made clear. Because let's say we said we're coming back on Thanksgiving, and I use that so hopefully people realize that's not the date we're picking, but we're coming back on Thanksgiving Day, and everybody gets ready for Thanksgiving Day, and then we end up not coming back till December 18th or until January 5th or January 3rd, 20th. It's not that there was anything dishonest in our process. We're not giving people the wrong impression on something. We're trying to give guidance, but that guidance is not binding. Is that a correct way to portray what we're voting on, so everybody has a clear understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And there are a lot of moving parts to this. Can we get staff? Can our technology come in on time? Everything's on back order. Is the county going to continue to keep us in out at the purple tier? There are definitely moving parts to this.
I just think it's important for people to know that beforehand, because whatever the expectation is, if the expectation is they voted this is the day we're coming back, and it doesn't happen, and people don't have the understanding, there's going to be a lot of unhappy people already.
And thank you for clarifying that, because that is a 100% accurate statement. We will, based on the direction, we will do everything we can in our power. However, there are sometimes things outside of our control that we've received over the last 8 months that have put us in different positions. Absolutely correct.
Well, January 1st gets here, and we're in a full-fledged emergency. We're putting anybody at the hospitals, and, obviously it's not going to happen.
Correct.
So we're hoping under the best of circumstances we'll be able to start back up, but we have to have something for people to plan on, and we have to have something to tell them, look, we're not going to try and get there before this date. You're free to do what you need to do until then, and until then, this is what our schedule is going to be like.
Right.
They need some kind of plan to go by until then.
Agree 100%. I appreciate, Mr. Wilson, you throwing that in, because the reality we've been living in lately, the reality could be, it could change, but if the board's direction is X, then we will do everything in our power, and if it's outside our control, we'll communicate. But it wouldn't be because we're doing something mischievous or wrong. It's because conditions changed, which,
Okay.
thank you. So
We
sorry.
have no crystal ball.
Nope, that's true.
So I think that we were at the point of discussion before I interrupted you, Ms.
Okay.
Anderson. Was there anything that I interrupted you when you were going to ask a
Oh,
question?
I was just going to say that after the discussions that I've had with parents as well as many, many teachers, and I started out responding to every email I got from teachers, and it quickly overwhelmed me to where I just couldn't get back to all of them. Hopefully I'll still be able to respond to them. I have been convinced that we should put it off until January. For the safety of the kids, I know my own grandson was scared to death of the virus when he was first sent home, and he would run over and shut the door. He just didn't want that virus in the house. And if one kid was quarantined in his classroom, or if he heard that somebody had the virus, or God forbid somebody passed away, he would be traumatized for life. And these little ones, they can't handle it. There's too much information out there, and the televisions and stuff are going 24 hours a day with it. They just finally unplug the TV. We've got to do whatever we can do to protect them. Every one of them has, different circumstances that we don't know. They got grandparents living with them, or parents with immune problems, or siblings with immune problems, teachers that have issues, and there's not enough subs out there to cover it. You bring them in back to school, finally they get to go back to school, they're all excited, and what do? 2 weeks later you say, sorry, you're going home again. Some of these kids can't adjust like that. I just don't see that we have any other choice but to put it off until then. It's my opinion. And I appreciate all of the information that the teachers and CSEA members in a lot of cases have given us. It helps us to make decisions, to know that information and how it affects them on a day-to-day level. I always appreciate the input. Anyone else?
We do have a few public comments. I don't know if the board wants to reserve their comment, or
I just want to make sure.
I've got some comments and statements. Mr. Georgia, since you're there, we can continue with that, please. One of the comments that I've been hearing a lot about is, why is it taking us so long to open, or to reopen? And the document that you gave us this evening, you did address a lot of those issues. But can you remove your mask? It's really hard.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat what I just said?
If you could.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Mr. Jordan, I have had a lot of comments about why is it taking so long to reopen? Since we started working this in March, a lot of people don't understand why we're still not open when districts around us have, even adjoining an Antelope. If you could please explain to the public why we have not reopened yet.
I say for the biggest factor is the change in guidance. To give you an example, we didn't get the first California Department of Ed guidance until January 29th when the SB came out. We're a month away from school at that point. We've already developed our first whole playbook, was ready to go. Now we have to go back and change it again. The next guidance that came out off of that Senate bill was July 20th. So we got pushed back even further. Now we're looking again, what is the new guidance? Now we've got to readjust again. Our next guidance came out August 10th. Our school year's already started by then. We're looking at that guidance, and this guidance, to be honest, has been hit or miss. I'm not trying to, these are hard times for everybody. Some of it is good, some of it is not so good. There is no silver bullet, there's no template out there. But we need guidance to make sure that we're following the new attendance policy so that we continue to receive funding. We need to follow the guidance so that we're meeting all of the health and safety guidelines. That is continuing to change. Again, I mentioned earlier, the last guidance from CDE that changed everything again came out last week. That changed how we're going to be doing attendance and everything else again. So it continues to change as we go through. Now, the schools that are open now, they've been in the tier where they could have opened a long time ago. It took them a long time also to get to the point we are. We've really only been allowed to reopen for, a week and a half. 13th, I believe it was, of October. It was the first potential date. And you don't know until that day whether you're going to get the guidance to be able or the clearance to reopen. So we've been working tirelessly behind the scenes. And again, things keep changing and we keep adjusting. You'll notice that some of our surrounding districts, San Juan, Twin Rivers, have already picked January dates for a reason, because of these moving parts, these moving guidance that we've done. We right now also, you can't just turn the light switch on. It doesn't work that way, and everybody comes back. As we talked about earlier, we've got health techs that we're trying to find, but we don't have even applicants. We're going to have teachers we're going to have to replace in some crucial departments. I'm looking at a special ed department on one of my sites. I need at least 3 people. That's significant. We've got to find those people in order to come back. We've had some retirements that were kind of unexpected in the last couple of weeks, last couple of months. We're trying to find people to replace those. So staffing, it takes time. It takes time to get applicants. It takes time to get them cleared. It takes time to get them trained up, get them back in. Unfortunately, these things they take a lot of time. In the meantime, doing all these things and building these plans, we're still running the school. And the school is running in a totally, completely different way than it was ever run in the history of schools. Teachers, again, are having to learn all new hardware, all new software. I hear repeatedly from teachers, I'm working way more hours now than I ever did before. If this virus would go away, I would bet teachers would much rather be in class. Because to be honest, it's not as hard. And I don't mean that it's an easy job. I did not do not misquote. I did not say that. But it is a very difficult job they're doing now, and the rate of emails that they're getting is doubling and tripling from families. You need help. You need help. I don't understand this. Can you answer that? Can you answer this?
And I know teachers that are working on weekends answering these emails because they didn't have time during the workday.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mr. Jordan, let me help you out a little bit, because if I'm a parent that asked that question, and I'm looking at schools around us that are open, I know what you're saying about why are we talking about the 9th or the 30th or the 5th, but I don't think that addresses, like if I'm a parent asking that question. So really it doesn't lie with us at all. The governor has set out color-coded counties, and they decide the color codes. The governor puts out a directive that then the California Department of Health feeds down to the counties, and the counties are following the governor's lead. So it's not in our hands at all if we're simply following the county guidelines. This is something that's coming from one person in Sacramento. This is not where we get to make the decision. So if Yuba or Sutter County has been cleared from up top, they're moving forward before we're moving forward, not because we're dragging our feet.
Correct.
But that's what's coming down from on high. So the short answer to anybody out there if they ask that is no, it's not a law. The local decision-making process has been bypassed by Sacramento. I mean, I appreciate your answer, but I'm just thinking for the people that are answering that, they're like, we never answered the question. It's not a decision we're making. We're not making the decision to not come back. The county, the directive from Sacramento is making that decision for us.
That is correct. And maybe I misunderstood the question. I apologize.
No, you didn't.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's probably then a dual, because you are correct.
Because I know a lot of parents are just like, come on, when are you going to get my kid back in school? Right? It's a little bit more, I mean, I'd like to say, hey, next week, but I know it's a little bit more complicated than that. So I've heard a couple of those questions myself.
It was October 13th at exactly 3 o'clock p.m. when the health order came out, and we didn't know what it was going to be until that time, that schools in Sac County could reopen. And if you go back and look at, we sent our surveys out before that in anticipation that that could happen. So we were already anticipating, but we want to make sure that we send that survey out as close to the time we're actually going to go as possible, because we know we've had people change their minds even in the last 2 weeks, what they want to do, as more information comes out. It's a hard decision for families. I've read some heart-wrenching emails from our staff who are really torn. They've got people with pre-existing conditions at home. They don't want to bring this home to them, and they're torn on what to do.
The reason why I asked the question is because there is another school within Antelope that has started school. Right, and that's why I asked the question, because they are living in, or they do reside in Sacramento County, but they're opened and we're not. So that's why I was asking Mr. Jordan to give some direction on the reason.
But they're probably, as Kelly was saying, they're probably under the control of Placer County, and that's dictated by Sacramento.
A majority of that district.
They are.
Yeah, that's dictated by Sacramento, not us.
That is correct.
Placer County moved out of the tier a long time ago.
But-
and even the whole tier thing has changed.
And I would also state that there are still Placer County districts that aren't open yet. And they've been cleared for, if not several weeks, months, I would go on to say. But anyway.
The other question for you, Mr. Jordan, is somebody asked me about the PPE and safety protocols for special education. Can you just give a little highlights on that, please? Are there going to be different protocols for special education students in regards to that?
Yes, so we've made sure that there is an abundance of PPE. And again, that's masks, face shields, so on and so forth. We understand that in some situations that the 6 feet of social distancing is not possible. So for example, we have some special ed students at all middle, high, and elementary that need toilet. You can't maintain 6 feet of social distance with that. So we've got gloves, goggles, masks, face shields, gowns. I mean, we've got all of that stuff. And because we recognize in some of our special ed students, some of our students with IEPs, excuse me, there is going to be a need to be closer than 6 feet. We still want to make sure everybody is as safe as it can possibly be.
That's going to be a really difficult population to deal with.
It is challenging, yes.
You did mention that we do have cohorts coming back, and we will continue to have some cohorts coming back. Is that true?
Yes, correct.
Is there going to be a soft opening for some students that need to come back, that have the extra need or that need extra support, other than the special education students?
So we're looking at the special ed population, our homeless population. We're looking at our EL population as well, all three, to have some smaller cohorts. There is legislation we can have cohorts up to 16 persons, including teachers and students, to come back for those types of interventions. We also have some one-on-one counseling going on. There's some emergency counseling relief where we can do one-on-one when it's a critical situation. And we've had a few of those. We're also doing one-on-one and have been for over a month. IEP testing one-on-one. We have both in-person IEP one-on-one as well as we set up a virtual testing room where the psychologist is in another location, but the student is there and they're taking the test with a camera and a computer and so on.
But will we have a soft opening for those students? as opposed to just putting them in a cohort.
I'm not sure what you mean by soft open.
Are you suggesting that possibly some students would come back with their teachers earlier than others?
Yeah,
I think
as
that.
soft opening.
And I'm not sure on the soft opening term, but I think what you're saying is, would they come back like maybe half the class or something like that, or?
Possibly, yeah.
So for example,
I would just say it would be dependent upon our MOU and what we have, our volunteering and stuff like that. But that could be a possibility as we get more cohorts coming. Yes, it could be.
so for example, here at Russell Rouse, Mrs. Price has her class. They've been back for the last, it's been 2 weeks now, almost 2 weeks. And so her class and her aides, and they're working with her kids, and she's also doing synchronous with the families who just weren't comfortable. We have the same with Larissa Snyder's class down at that spin.
Sorry, one more question.
That's okay.
How will we handle contract tracing, and who's going to handle that?
So Mr. Grimes went to a contact tracing training. He is going to be leading up all the contact tracing in terms of how that goes, with the assistance of our nursing staff, our health tech staff. And then we are also in constant contact with the Sacramento County Department of Health when it comes to decisions of quarantine and that kind of stuff.
So Mr. Grimes has taken the lead on the contact tracing, organizing it through the personnel department in conjunction with our health staff. And then from that, he went through a Johns Hopkins contact tracing certification, I believe it's called. And then tomorrow, even from there, there's another course through it's a local Sacramento County Public Health is putting on contact tracing and making the connections with our local health department. So those are both there. He's our expert, and then he will share the wealth.
Has anybody brought up maybe the school sites doing testing?
So testing for students has not been considered by us. Some districts have talked about that. We do have the ability for our staff to be surveillance tested once every 60 days for free of charge to them. And then if there is a situation that testing is needed, then maybe there is, for lack of a better word, an outbreak. We have some classes. There's a mobile, Sacramento County Public Health has a mobile unit that they would send out with staff to actually do testing on site if need be. But as far as the individual testing of students prior to coming back, that has not been considered by us anywhere, not many. I think one district I've heard in this county is talking about it.
If we do go back to the purple and we're in the hybrid model, would we close or stay open?
So the current county order is you would stay open and you would quarantine according to their protocols. So that may be individuals, maybe a class, maybe a cohort. I mean, do all that in conjunction.
I think the question, if a school is open while they're in the red and the school opens, and if the district or if that county goes back to purple, that purple status, that school can remain open if it chooses, if it chose to go back to distance learning, they would not have to. But because the status within the county changes to a higher level, you don't have to go back and shut down immediately. You could stay open.
Thank you. My next question is for Mr. Deason. Hi, Mr. Deason. There are some concerns about the current ventilation in our schools. Could you express if we are going to update those ventilation systems, or what are we going to do to?
We're replacing filters, and we have been holding off as long as possible because they're not scheduled to be changed yet, but we're upgrading our filters to MERV 10 filters. And the type of filter you can put into an HVAC system is based on recommendations for the system. So if you put, like let's say, everyone wants a MERV 13 filter, or they want to put in a HEPA filter, it can't pull, some of the units can't pull enough air through to run them, so then they would break down. So we are putting the highest MERV filter that we can in every single unit. My maintenance department actually started this week, and they will have everything completed in the next 2 weeks with complete new air filters. We're also opening up the outside air controls to 100% to bring in, to turn the air over faster. We're getting ready to do a screen replacement program so that they can open windows while the weather's still good without the dreaded mosquitoes coming in. And we also have purchased HEPA air sweepers for the nurses' room and the isolation rooms to provide an additional amount of filtering that you know can be done in every single classroom.
Thank you very much. One more question, Mr. Deason. When we do come back in hybrid, November, December, January, whatever date is chosen, will we still have the emergency drills that we currently are used to?
Right now, we've been meeting with our safety committees still, but we have decided that while students are not on staff, we're not going to obviously have fire drills for the staff. We're hoping, and I'm going to be checking with the local fire departments on what they want to do with this, but we're hoping not to do the drills in the short time with the students that the students are here until we move back into phase 3, phase 1. But we'll have to wait and see what the direction is from the fire department.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Jordan. I appreciate your time. The only other thing I have to say is, as Mr. Jordan repeated or said earlier, between November 9th and December 18th, there's 24 days of instruction. So just to keep that in mind, if we decide to open up in November 9th, there's only actually 24 days of school. Is that correct? Between January,
yes,
January 9th and December 18th before winter break. So we've got to take that into consideration as well when we're choosing the date, because do we want to disrupt our lives or our students' lives with going to school, taking a break, going to school, taking a break? That's a lot of disruption for the students and the families and our staff. Thank you.
That and flu and the family gatherings and...
Thank you.
Questions, Mr. Bruno?
I have quite a few comments here.
Okay.
So we mentioned that we received a lot of emails on this topic. I want to reassure everyone, I read every single one of those emails at least once, most of them 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Some of them were incredibly moving. We received some comments from the teachers union, and I read every one of those comments. There were comments suggesting that we open later. There were comments suggesting we open sooner. I felt every single point of view was useful to learn from. Just to summarize things for the public, the people that were arguing that we should open sooner are concerned about things like equity issues, the mental health of students. I've heard people concerned about losing out on years of athletic eligibility, essentially, because you only get to be young once. Also got an email from a teacher who's participating in one of the cohorts and saying that their students are thriving and things are going really well. The people that are suggesting that we start later, one of the main points is we're opening up, and then Veterans Day, and then Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. And so just as students are starting to get reacquainted with being in the classroom, they're taking a break, and another break. And there's going to be instructional time lost with each of those breaks as you have to reestablish the classroom routines, especially with new routines being in place. And that's especially challenging when you have the very young kids, such as the pre-K, or the middle and high school students, where they have to do it every single class. It's multiple times a day. And that would result in a significant amount of time lost. Also, they are concerned about if we have to quarantine teachers, students, whatever, how that's going to disrupt the students' lives. And that they are arguing that our current distance learning actually provides better stability for them. One of the other big concerns is with Thanksgiving and Christmas, a lot of families are going to go against recommendations and have large family gatherings, travel, and there's a very real risk of a spike in infections. Other points that they made, other districts in our area are looking towards January to start. A high percentage of our students, which I believe is district-wide somewhere around 40+%, are preferring distance learning. That doesn't, the ones that are saying that they want to come in aren't necessarily saying that that's their first choice that we reopen, but that if we are going to be open, that that's what they'll choose. Roughly 80% of the teachers are saying they prefer to wait until January. There's concern about students or staff members not taking the recommended precautions when they're outside of school, therefore increasing the risk of them bringing something in and exposing others. There's the potential of having to shuffle kids to other teachers. As you mentioned in your presentation, students that are choosing distance learning may lose out on the current teacher. And I've seen concern about that both from the teacher and the student and the parent perspective, where that's a concern of theirs. Some parents say they feel like they're going to be locked into a choice once they make it. They're not sure how much flexibility they're going to have if they decide that that's not working out for them. Districts in Placer County have had to quarantine teachers and students since reopening, and that's a real concern. What really affected me the most, though, in these emails were the stories of teachers and students and spouses and other family members who were high risk that this could put in danger. I saw an email from a teacher who said she's in tears because she can't afford to go on leave, but her husband's at high risk, so she feels like she's having to choose between paying her bills or risking her husband's life. Another email said some teachers are talking about quarantining themselves from their spouses long term. Another email was discussing that teaching is not a profession where you expect to be putting your life on the line, like police and firefighters and the military do, but they feel that that's what they're being asked to do. Another email, the teacher mentioned having some severe health complications and being a single parent, and this puts her child at risk of essentially becoming an orphan. Another email described losing 5 people close to them to this disease, including 2 family members. These are real fears. The teachers that were emailing us aren't looking for vacation. In fact, many of them described they're putting in more hours than usual right now. From the tone of their emails, it was obvious that these are people that care deeply about their students. Many of them were talking about how much they miss interacting with their students. One teacher was upset about not being able to hug a crying student or high-five a celebrating student. These aren't teachers who are looking for an easy way out. These are teachers who are feeling torn. Many of them are afraid to return, but saying that they will because they want to do what's best for their students. When we have 80% of our teachers speaking up about an issue, I think we need to listen.
I know we had 2 from earlier that we said we'd put on Part C because it seemed pertinent, so.
I have a card from Kelly.
Okay.
And while Kelly comes up, just thank Mr. Jordan for taking the lead on this and doing that. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jordan.
Good evening. Obviously, I'm not here tonight to talk about this. I'm here for another purpose, but I'm really glad I'm here because I do have a very unique perspective on this. I work for the California Department of Public Health, very intimately involved in the COVID response. Just spent the last 2 days reading all of the county's equity metric reports, which is now a part of the metrics that they have to meet in order to move from tier to tier. So I'm really familiar with what's going on, and I just want to clarify that it is not coming from one person. It is coming from thousands of scientific experts, doctors, public health employees, scientists, doctors, data scientists, who are analyzing this data on a daily and
hourly basis to come up with what they feel are the best recommendations that they can come up with in order to protect everyone. And believe me, mental health is at the top of their list. So understanding that, yes, we need to get back to some sort of normalcy is definitely taken into consideration. So I wanted to just kind of put that out there. Next, I wanted to talk about the 41 states that are showing significant increases in hospitalizations, ICU beds that are becoming scarce. The states where the schools have opened, I know people have said, oh, children don't get it. Well, children do get it, but we pulled them out of school before it can become ridiculously bad. And so those numbers were skewed to begin with. That's probably more opinion on my part than scientific information, but I believe that is the scientific consensus that, yes, children do get it, maybe not as high of a rate showing symptoms, but they do get it. And the evidence has shown in the states where the schools have reopened that there's been a sharp uptake in the number of children who have the disease, and immediately following that, there's a sharp uptake in the number of older citizens who also get the disease. So they are taking it home and they are spreading it to their families. So this is very real. We are in a worse situation now than we were in March. It is not going to get better in the winter. So the idea of opening up in November is frightening at best. On the other hand, I do understand parents are like, my kid is going crazy, they need that interaction, I can't educate them and do a work at home, I'm not able to go to work, I can't feed my kids. I mean, there are real issues around not bringing kids back to school, and I understand that. And I'm thrilled to hear Mr. Deason's plans for all of the PPE and the air filtering and all of that. I know he's going to take the precautions that are necessary. Oh, one more thing I wanted to say about the tiers. So the reason, if anyone out there is still not clear on why we can't move faster, when a county moves into the tier that can allow schools to reopen, there's still a waiting period where they have to maintain those statistics, that data, in order to say, okay, yes, now the schools can begin to reopen. And so it's a very long, slow process because they want to make sure that we don't end up having that spike again that we had before. So there's that. And the main thing I wanted to talk about was something that Mr. Grimes was talking about as far as not being able to guarantee teachers their option and explaining to them the leaves that are available to them. The teachers, the faculty, and staff in this educational community are equal citizens. They are not lesser or servants. They are equal citizens in educating this community. You've afforded the option of making a decision whether parents and students want to return their students to school, and that same decision should be given to all of the teachers and staff without the risk of them losing their job or having to take leave. That upsets me. If I was on that side of the table, I would go on about it for days. But you heard from me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Kelly, stay there for a second, please. That was a good segue. Thank you for bringing that up. So, I understand what you're saying about cases. My concern with so much fear going around is that in March, there's been this great bait and switch. So in March, it was we need 15 days to flatten the curve because we're going to crush our healthcare system without 15 days to flatten the curve. That has now been switched to we've got to prevent anybody and everybody from getting it. So I think there needs to be a separation between in March when they thought there was going to be a 10% death rate, because that's what the death rate was in Italy, to people getting it. You know, I see all this politicization going on, like The United States has more cases. Yeah, we're doing more testing than everybody. So the scientific studies I've read, because I see a lot of people say that, they're like, science, okay, this is a science I know. France has done a contact study, Germany's done a contact study, Iceland, because they don't have the same constitutional protections we do, they've probably got the best contact study out there. I don't know anybody who says kids don't get it. They say kids don't die from it unless they're in a risk group. And they say that then part of the reason why we flatten the curve, because early on they say elementary school kids don't get it, but we got to prevent them from taking it home and giving it to grandma and grandpa and killing grandma and grandpa. Unanimously, and if there's another study, I'd be happy to look at it if you tell me about it. But Germany, France, Iceland all said kids don't die from it unless they're in a risk group, and they don't pass it to grandma and grandpa. So, you know, when I look at it, are cases up? Yeah, but when you test for a case, you're going to get a case. When this started, we were measuring the death percentage, and now we've kind of gone into this Huxleyan thing, and I would encourage everybody to read Brave New World and then the Brave New World Revisited into this, we're going to protect everybody from everything and nobody's going to get it. That's not a realistic goal. And so when you look at, we went from 15 days to flatten the curve to we're going to shut off socialization, I think that's what a lot of people are looking at. And so, you know, I don't know if you know of any other contact studies other than those three that show a different conclusion, but every contact, those are the only three I know of. So if there's 18 of them out there, then that means I don't know about 15 of them. But, you know, and that's a concern to me because, you know, when we were in March, none of us thought we'd be here in May. In May, we're like, by the time the summer's over, we'll there's no way we're not going back to school in the fall, right? And so I'm sure people are sitting here like, if we put it back to January 5th, it'll be solved by then. With the fear that's out there that people are sowing, when we get to January 5th, there's still going to be people like, I still can't go back. So what I would like to see is more scientific information put out there so people feel better. If you're in a risk group, it makes sense why you're concerned about it. But you know, if you're a single mom with a 7-year-old with a kid who's not in a risk group, we shouldn't be instilling that mom with fear about putting her kid back in school. I mean, at least not according to the science.
There should definitely be precautions, and there should be an understanding that this is a high-risk activity. To return your 7-year-old child into a classroom with however many other children is definitely going to be high risk, no matter what way you look at it. But the risk versus reward, if that child is ADD or needs special ed services or is just basically can't learn at home in the home environment, or the parents now can't go to work and put food on the table, then obviously the child needs to go back to school. But to say, oh, it's perfectly safe is absolutely irresponsible. It is not perfectly safe, and that's the bottom line. There's been data on a daily basis coming from all the states across the country that show that when the kids go back to school, the numbers go up, not just with the kids. And yes, kids are dying, and not necessarily in high-risk groups. Kids are dying. Kids are getting this inflammatory disease and dying a very painful, suffering death. They're taking it home, not just to their grandparents, not just to high-risk people, but to everybody. They're taking it home and they're spreading it, just like people who work in the medical industry.
So which study shows that? Because the 3 studies I know of deny that.
Okay, so I don't know what studies they are. I see the data that comes across my desk, which has been pulled from numerous different data sources. But I also watch, you know, the news and the governor's reports and all of the reports coming across the country that show that the numbers go up 2 weeks after the schools are reopening. So it is happening. I don't think that that's like a predetermined outcome. I think that the precautions that we're taking are what are going to prevent the spread, and it's going to make it so that we can return. So, to talk about what you were talking about, how it went from 15 days to slow the curve to now we don't want anybody to get it. Well, people are still getting it. People are still dying. A lot of people are still dying. If you look at the numbers, up until just recently, we had almost 200 people a day dying just in this state from COVID. So to say that we're trying to prevent everybody from getting it is just ridiculous. We know that's not possible. Experts know that's not possible. What is possible, though, is to try and minimize it so that our ICU units can handle these patients and possibly not let them all die. So, no, it hasn't gone from a switch and bait or whatever it was, bait and switch, whatever it was you said. It hasn't gone from that. It's gradually gotten more detailed information, and so it's become more understood. It's become more detailed as far as what can we do to stop this. What are our positivity rates? How many people in 100,000 are coming up positive? And yes, we're testing more people, so we're going to get more cases. But that positivity rate gives us a different perspective. It tells us how many of the people being tested are having it. That's why the science and everything is changing, is because we have more data. And if you say there's not enough science, then I strongly encourage you to go to covid19.ca.gov and look, because there's lots of science. It's updated every single day. People in my office are the ones involved with providing that data to the governor. It is not the governor making the decisions autonomously. He is listening to the experts and making decisions that will help everybody. So that's all I can say. Thank you, Kelly.
The state level reports say that, let's see where it was. State level reports are the best publicly available data on child COVID-19 cases in the United States. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association are collaborating to collect and share all publicly available data from the states on child COVID-19 cases. And the number that they report is 10.9% of all cases in states reporting cases by age. Over 741,000 children have tested positive for COVID-19 since it.
And that doesn't count the asymptomatic ones who have not been tested. So yeah, pretty significant.
So how many of those kids died? But that's the bait and switch. It was supposed to kill us all, and it's not.
Well, my understanding when it began, before we get too far off into the bushes on this, is that they were bringing it, to flatten the curve, they were bringing it down so that they could stock up on all the supplies and hospital rooms and stuff that we would need to be able to deal with it when it wiped everything out. Right. And they've gotten to that point. Now, if you look at what's going on back on the East Coast, it's built up again. And it's starting to get bigger numbers than it was in the beginning and coming this way. Not only that, but I heard recently that there's a man overseas somewhere, in England somewhere, that has gotten a second form of COVID. And there's also, there was one other thing, he got a second form of COVID, and then in China, they developed a whole new strain.
I'm sorry, can we do a sidebar on this, because it's already a quarter? Can we do a sidebar on this, because it's already a 7:45?
Right. Well, I'm saying, I don't want to get too far into that, but
so
that's what I found on COVID in kids.
I would like to make a motion.
Pediatrics.
I would like to make a motion.
Excuse me, though, just point out, there are about 26 or 8 public comments that we might want to hear before anything. Sorry, Ms. Pope, but are you ready for that? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. This one is from Jason Ferensky. Our children currently attend Wilson C. Riles. We plan to continue with distance learning because it is the safest option for our family, but we have some comments/concerns that we would like addressed. 1, based on what we read in the plan, our kids will possibly be getting all new teachers because we choose to continue with distance learning. To us, it seems very disruptive to switch all the teachers in the middle of the school year. We have children with special needs, and my wife is in constant contact with the teachers to get accommodations and such. Having to rebuild those student-teacher and parent-teacher relationships is going to add stress to what already is a less than ideal and stressful education experience. What is the district and Wilson C. Ryle staff going to do to help this transition be as smooth as possible? Number 2, we also don't understand why you are looking at putting students and staff back in the classroom when COVID is spiking again and most experts expect the numbers to increase even more in the winter. Even though we are choosing distance learning, we are concerned of the impact that a COVID outbreak at the Center Unified Schools will have on the community. We hope that the school district is making decisions based on science and not politics. What is the district going to do if there is a major outbreak? Will all students go back to distance learning? From a CJUSD teacher, please consider setting a return to school date of no earlier than January 5th. Consistent student education, as well as providing a safe and healthy educational environment for CJUSD students, teachers, and families must be the main priorities as we deal with COVID-19. Returning to school in January has the following benefits: support of families and faculty. Almost 50% of our families have elected to stay in the current distance learning model. 80% of the CJUS teachers support a return date of January 5th, 2021 or later. Distance learning has been a time-consuming challenge for all stakeholders. A later return under the hybrid model gives teachers and families more time to prepare for completely new routines. Another change so close to the end of the semester is disruptive and difficult for students and teachers. It would be better to start fresh at the semester. By waiting, we provide consistency to our students and teachers. Some districts in our area have already returned and within the first week had groups of students and teachers test positive. Several districts in our area have already voted to stay in the distance learning model until January. Additionally, please consider these negative effects. There is no guarantee that the hybrid model will provide a better education for students. It's not the same quality of education that existed pre-COVID. Many teachers are concerned and anxious about their personal health and the health of their immediate and extended families. This added stress is already taking its toll on teachers. The progress of this pandemic could be much worse over the next few months. Cases are soaring uncontrollably nationwide, and experts predict a spike in cases over the holidays. Rushing to return to school during the cold and flu season and during a time students and families are traveling for the holidays is not a good idea. The district has done a lot of work to create a plan to address safety and protection through masks and distancing, but does not have the capability to update ventilation or provide COVID testing to students and staff. This prevents a completely safe return. Please, above all, prioritize the safety of our students and teachers in considering this option. A return of no earlier than January 5th provides the consistency we need and a better chance at safely returning. From Jessica Katzen. I am an elementary teacher in the Center Joint District. I just want to take a moment to consider this question. What's the rush? I feel this reopening is happening too prematurely. As scientists and leaders have said, we are entering the most challenging months of this virus, flu season. Every year I have the sniffles, cough, sneeze, etc. when the season changes along with countless staff, students, and families. We will all be removed from the classroom every time this happens. If it is a cold and not COVID, when can we return to in-person learning? What about when kiddos have these symptoms? How are parents supposed to take care of them when they have their jobs to attend to? These are questions our district has not answered to yet. Do I miss in-person interactions with my students? Yes. Do I want to teach as I was trained to in the classroom? Yes. But at the same time, Is November and flu season the best time to do this? When the rest of the Sacramento school districts have decided to start later in the year, why do we need to reopen months before? I think later in the year seems more reasonable, and so does majority of the teachers in Center Unified USB. When surveyed, most said a January and beyond start date is what they would choose. Let's have the colder months behind us and be able to safely return to in-person learning. So I leave you with my first question. What is the rush? Thank you. And then, this one is from Karen. I am disappointed. Oh, sorry, I already read that one. Got a whole big list. There we go. From Mary Houlihan. Please, not until at least January. Right. This one is from Angelina Hughes. If the MOU is not signed, or if the teachers' union does not agree to the November 9th start date, what are the alternatives? Or is there another plan for instruction? And also, again, from Angelina Hughes. Does a student who signed up for hybrid in-person learning have the option to distance learn until after the winter break?
Scott, are those things we know that you can just answer at the time, or?
We could follow up with them.
I would say follow up.
All right, so just so people don't think we're ignoring them, the district will follow up with you to answer your specific question.
And I do have one that was thanking you guys. If you'd like to hear that one, or would you like me to forward that to you guys? I appreciate all the attention and time that the board and all the admin have placed into listening to the concerns of the community and answering all our questions. It shows that you have the stakeholders' best interest in mind. Thank you. And again, that one came much later, but that was from Angelina Hughes. And I still have more coming in.
So are they on this item? I'd say go through all of them.
I have a total of 26.
Right, so
Oh,
what
do you-
we'll do, Carol, is if you just give a public comment for this item C, so let's read them all.
Okay.
Work and then
Okay. They're still coming in as we talk. All right. Angelina Hughes said, what are other Sac County schools doing about reopening their schools? And then she said, there are only 24 days of instruction between the estimated November 9th start date and the hybrid plan until winter break. Thanksgiving break is in the middle of these instruction days, which usually means that people will be gathering with family and friends outside of their household. This increases the risk of our students, staff, and community of becoming exposed to the virus. Again, with only 24 instructional days, in my case with both my children in high school, it is only about 12 in-class days. I'm hoping that we can hold off the start of the hybrid learning model until after the winter break. This one is from Naisha Harris-Knott. I saw on the news this morning that if a person has COVID-19 and is asymptomatic, it only takes up to 15 minutes for another person that can catch COVID-19. We are still in red in California. I believe that we should not return until we are yellow and past flu season. This one is from Latoya Jenkins. Hello, my name is Latoya Jenkins, and I will love to be involved in helping get the kids back in schools. Also, I would like to bring a physical dance group to all of the schools. Okay. This one is from Gabriella Hughes, she's a student. As a student, I feel that starting the hybrid learning in January would be a better and safer transition for the following reasons. 1, changing of class routines would be easier. 2, it would give more time for the teachers to prepare for the transition. 3, I feel that the risk of catching COVID will be lower in the new year. Thank you for your time. Again from LaToya Jenkins, will the teachers change in the cohort program? From Leah Edwards, what will happen to classified employees if we return at a later date in January? Like transportation, will we continue to work on site before January? And this one is from Tanisha J. Why is it that when questions or concerns are posed to the board via comment section during the meetings, there is no follow-up for resolution if there is no immediate answer or response? And she refers to the last meeting where there were concerns that were brought up about distance learning and camera use. This is just one example, but isn't the first time I have noticed this during meetings. Unfortunately, the lack of follow-up to things that are brought up by parents, etc., make the board/district appear as though there is no concern. From Monica, will there be a parent choice for AM or PM selection for on-campus at Riles? Aubrey Drennan said, why can we not come back to school early? There are students having trouble learning online and they do better in learning in an in-school environment. And from Ron J. Moses, the high school does not sound right. If that's the case, do the middle school and elementary the same? From Taylor, it looks like Taylor is a student in the district. It's regarding blue/gold. How are students being assigned to blue and gold groups? From Kim Bayoni, why has McClellan not been addressed in the presentation?
I thought it was.
From Barbara, if a teacher has requested to remain on distance learning, who will be in the classroom with the students on campus? From Stephanie Tempe, November 6th or November 9th date for return. I just want to point out at the elementary level that going back November 6th or 9th, as I've been told, means that the week prior, teachers will be setting up their classrooms, completing report cards, and still teaching online. That is a lot to do in that time span, especially when many of us are already working many more than our contracted hours. From Macon, in my opinion, Twin Rivers got it right, January 19th. Let us allow families to get through the holidays and have the gatherings we know they will have. Then give a few weeks before we put the kids back in the classroom in case COVID pops up at a higher rate due to those gatherings. This one is from Angelina. Looks like she is also a student. What exact licensing does a healthcare professional need? How are you going to determine students online get the same type of education as those in class? Subjects of concern, science, and math. And from Monica. My two children, 11th grade and 7th grade, are struggling and ask every day to return to campus. We will take whatever we can get and are ready to return November 9th. They understand the importance of following social distancing rules and wearing masks in order to keep campus open. Thank you. This one is from Lori. It's understandable that there are some families who are afraid or hesitant to return to campus, but they have the option to continue distance learning. Those who make the choice to return to school should have that option to return as soon as they can. They should be afforded the choice on their situation, just like those who choose to stay home. One should not interfere with the other or influence when the options are available to either group. Okay, I already read the thank you from Angelina, so I have some new ones that have come in. Okay, from Lori. Okay, the health official is fear-mongering the people of our community. People need to be considerate to try and not get others sick, but that is for any disease, just like the flu, which kills people every year. But why is it okay for adults to go to work? Why is it okay for daycares to operate, but schools cannot? Why can Governor Newsom's winery continue to operate if this is such a deadly disease, which our children cannot be in school to get a full education? If these actions and companies can continue to function, then there is a double standard for what they personally feel is okay when it benefits them and what they feel is not. This one is from Hayden Harris. As a student at Center High School, I feel absolutely terrified that people on the board don't see COVID as severe as it is. I have chosen to stay with distance learning, but I am now worried about friends and teachers becoming infected. Sending children to school and saying they have less risk does not mean that there is no risk. Also, I take issue with the high school expecting students still participating in online learning to still get the same information and learn in class when it will be geared towards in-class students. I will now be expected to sit in front of my computer for way longer, and with homework, I am spending upwards of 8 hours. All ideas I have heard only leads me to believe students won't be completely safe and stress levels will be way higher. Another one from Latoya. I thank the school district for trying so hard to return kids back to school. We should just wait till after the break. I feel if the kids do go back to school, we should teach kids for 15 to 30 minutes about COVID-19. My kids miss their friends and teachers. I have a child who is suffering from mental issues. We can have a program for kids who are suffering from that. And from Hayden Harris, I feel as though you haven't heard student opinions. Why haven't you polled actual students to see how we would like to learn online or not? You could at least ask high school students. And it looks like my last one. From Armani Moses. I want to go back to school. I miss my friends. I understand to wear a mask, and I will show by example. Please allow us back. This is not fair. I missed my 6th grade.
So I think that takes care of all the comments. Is that true? Okay.
And just to clarify, Mr. Ware, still going to get back to those people that have questions?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll either respond directly to the emails, or someone had put in earlier the idea of like a frequently asked questions, that we can also put those questions in and then put an answer next to it that anyone can go to. They're saying sometimes going through the playbook is difficult, so I'll work on that tomorrow morning to see if we can get these aggregated and then put out and shared. Wonderful, thank you very much.
All right, so I think we've had lots of discussion. Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll motion. Actually, Mrs. Anderson just stepped out.
Okay. We'll update her when she comes back in. So what is your motion?
I would like to motion January 5th or after.
And I will second that motion.
Okay. Just want to make sure, because of the way the discussion, that motion is in order. Are we looking for something if it's safe to come back, or are we just looking for, is it January 5th, assuming it's safe to come back then?
Correct, and I would want to make sure that or after is, we would like it to be a specific date, January 5th, and with the caveat, Mr. Wilson, that you said that obviously situations could change.
All right, would you take that as a friendly amendment that, with the caveat of it being cleared and safe?
That is a friendly amendment. I would take that. Thank you.
All right, and your second still stands. All right, we have a motion and we have a second to, assuming that conditions are safe and cleared, that it will be January 5th or after. Is that stated correctly?
Yes.
All right. Any other comments on that? Or are we ready for a vote?
Okay.
All right, so we have a vote. Do we have unanimous consent? Yes. All right, and that is unanimous. All right. Now that brings us to item D, Governing Board Vacancy Candidate Interviews. We only have 2 this time, so it should not take as much time as the last meeting.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Excuse me, pardon me. Could we take a 3-minute break, Mrs. Anderson?
Sure. Wait. If she's not back by the time I'm done, then I'll take a little break. So we have 2 candidates who I think are pretty well known to the board. So I think that will make it all that much more harder, because I think we like you both. So why couldn't one of you be mean so we could like one of you? So anyway, it appears that we need a small break. So we're going to take just a couple-minute hiatus, and then we'll get back to interviewing you 2. Order, we're on item D. So we're going to ask some questions, and we're going to just, so it's not always the same format, we're going to start with Howard. We're going to ask Howard question 1, and then we're going to ask Kelly question 1, and then Kelly, you're going to go first for question 2. So each question, we're going to reverse the order who got asked first. We have 7 questions. So Howard, if you'll come up. And then Nancy, are you asking the first question?
I'm sorry.
If you want to.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Howard.
Good evening.
Welcome on. What do you see is the basic purpose of the public schools? What is the role of the Board of Trustees in fulfillment of that purpose? Can you hear me?
I beg your pardon?
Can you hear me?
I heard you fine.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I did. So the basic purpose of public schools would be to ensure that children's diverse potentials are fully realized and prepare them to live a productive life through rigorous academic instruction and becoming good citizens, learning to obey social and legal rules within our society. And the role of the Board of Trustees, where that would be to be responsible for developing and improving the district's mission and strategic goals and objectives, and establishing policies relating to the district's programs and services. And on the good citizen note, I'd like to point out I'm very happy to see some of that here in this auditorium tonight, over the stage and to the right of the stage. I think that's extremely important as it relates to teaching our children in our school systems on how to be a good citizen and to make them fully aware through such facets such as these banners to instill that upon them.
Thank you. Kelly.
Do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I think I can remember this one. So the basic purpose of public schools, obviously we need to educate our students, but there's so much more that goes on at a school that feeds into whether or not we're able to educate students, that we really have a very complex and complicated role as educators. Making sure that the environment they come to is safe. A safe could mean any number of different things. It could mean that whoever, a predator in their life is not there, that they have a safe place to talk about their feelings, that it's safe from violence, that it's safe from bullying and abuse, all kinds of things that feed into whether or not the environment is safe. But we do need to create a safe environment so that students can succeed in what they feel passionate about. Not just about math, reading, history. Those things are all fabulous, but building passion into that and building a desire to educate, to learn, is really the crux of what a school needs to do. And it also is a place where we provide opportunities to build their moral fiber, to be creative, to share their ideas, and to develop their self-worth, how they feel about themselves, and knowing where their place is in the world. So it's pretty complicated, but an education involves a lot of things.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ms. Stoker, you take a question too?
Yep. Kelly, this is for you. Can you hear me?
Sort of. I was going to take my mask off too, actually. I'll try not to get too close to the mic.
What is your highest priority to accomplish as a board member?
The last time I was asked this question, I said was to keep the district solvent. Let me explain why I say that. If the district isn't solvent, we don't have a district, and we can't educate the students. So the number one priority, in my eyes, is to make sure that we are making wise fiscal decisions, wise hiring decisions, that we're managing our budget, that we're managing our funding, and that we're advocating for funding, and that we're using the funding wisely to best support our students, family, and community. So for me, the most important thing as a board member is to watch that budget.
Thank you, Doris.
Howard?
Would you like me to repeat the question, Howard?
Yes, please.
Okay. What is your highest priority to accomplish as a board member?
So the highest priority I would like to ensure is fiscal responsibility of the board. Having been a member of this community for the last 31 years, since 1989, and learning of history prior to that, this board and this district has been known for its fiscal responsibility, which my understanding is made it rated one of the best districts in the state as it relates to how we deal with our funding, our financing, how we spend our money, what we spend it on, et cetera, and so forth. So there are, lots of educational issues that face center, and each must be resolved in order of priority. And I think fiscal responsibility is at the top of the list, along with the actual education of our children, of course, and the security of those children when they are within the realm of our responsibility at our facilities. So it's essential that we make sure that we have the finite revenues allocated to the district and make sure that they are sufficient to meet our needs and be sustainable. And I will strive to ensure that would be one of my highest priorities.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you. So Howard, as trustee, what would you see as your primary purpose, and how would you fulfill that role?
So my primary purpose, I believe, would be to maintain the highest levels and standards and rigorous learning goals for the children in a safe environment, as I spoke of a moment ago, and ensuring that the children receive the highest education by having really high expectations from them. Research over the last quarter of a century has consistently supported that one of the keys to closing the achievement gap of students between advantaged and less advantaged students and for raising overall achievement is to ensure that there is always going to be high, rigorous academic achievement and having high expectations of that. The best way to develop high achievement is to collaborate, have a healthy school environment, combat negativism, defeatism, and resistance, and having a solution-oriented, no-blame professional environment that involves the efforts of students, faculty, staff, parents, and the community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. So, as a trustee, what do you see as your primary purpose, and how would you fulfill that purpose?
So the primary purpose, in my eyes, of what a school board member does is to work together with the other board members to ensure that the district is being properly run, that we're meeting the community's needs, that we're meeting the students' needs, the staff and faculty's needs, making sure that things are being run above board, fiscally responsible, that we're reviewing the safety rules, that we're reviewing everything that crosses our desk, that really is critical to have those extra eyes looking at everything and making sure that things are getting done. The role of the board is to supervise the superintendent but we also are representatives of the community, and that's, in order to represent the community, we have to know what the community wants, and we have to take a very ethical approach to how we do that job, making sure that we are doing the best possible job we can to review everything, read everything, listen to what people have to say, and just ensuring that things are being done not only legally, fiscally responsibly, but just morally, ethically, that things are going well. We're the extra set of eyes that the superintendent needs.
Thank you.
5 sets of eyes.
Mr. Bruno, you have a question?
Okay. What would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with accurate and complete information for making a decision?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Mr. Bruno. So if I'm requesting information from an administrator, it's going to come through the superintendent. I would never go directly to another administrator and ask them for information. I might, as a board member, say, we would like to see a report, but that report would be routed through the proper channels and it would come to the superintendent. Now, if I thought there was something inaccurate about it, then I would definitely discuss that with the superintendent, because he is the one that would need to then discuss it down the line to the administrator who provided the information. So for me, it's really a matter of a chain of command. If information doesn't seem right, I'm definitely going to question it, but who will I question? I'm not gonna go to a kindergarten teacher and say, how come your third grade, your children aren't learning their ABCs? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go to the superintendent, who's gonna go to the principal, who's gonna go to the teacher, who's then gonna report back up. So you just have to follow that proper chain of command. We can't be poking our noses into every little bit and piece of what's going on operationally in the district. That's not the purpose. Second questions?
Thank you. Howard?
Would you like the question repeated?
Yes, please.
Okay. What would you do if you believed administrators had not provided you with accurate and complete information for making a decision?
First, I would make sure I took a systematic approach to the issue and determined what I would need to evaluate and consider, making sure that I was aware of any policy, procedure, guidelines, or precedents that existed as it related to the information that was provided me, and the decision, if a decision was made, that decision was in fact made. And I would determine if it would be necessary to include the office of the superintendent of the district and try to fact check that information if possible. If the information was data-driven, I would attempt to go to the source and compare and verify that information for my own information to be able to address the issue. And if the decision had already been made, I would attempt to ensure it complied with all appropriate rules, laws, and regulations at a district, county, and state level.
Thank you. Mrs. Anderson.
How does an effective school board ensure opportunities for parents and community members to express their diverse range of views to inform board deliberations on important policy issues?
Well, first and foremost, I think that you would have to be, it's necessary and required to be open and transparent in order to address such issues, and to also to ensure that things that we do as a district, as it relates to transparency, are being conducted so that there aren't any issues, such as live streaming this board meeting as an example. One of the things I noticed this evening is the participation from parents and staff that were piped through Carol to the board. That is not something I've seen in the past, I think. So that's something that kind of opens us up to being able to better communicate with our community, with our students, with our faculty and staff, and of course our students. So other things like you would do would be to visit schools, attend open houses, and attend the various advisory committees that take place, and that to lost my place. An example of some additional things that we could think about in the future would be having a platform perhaps that would be connected to our website that would allow things like blogging, frequently asked questions, or some kind of a social media medium that we would control internally, that where we could get information, share information, provide information to our students, faculty, parents, and community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Kelly?
Kelly.
Could you
Will you repeat it?
Yes.
How does an effective school board ensure opportunities for parents and community members to express their diverse range of views to inform board deliberations on important policy issues?
So how do we ensure that we're getting community input? It's a really tough question. I mean, there's a number of ways that we can do it. How do we do it, though? Really, it's important, and Mrs. Pope, you demonstrated this over and over. It's just really important to get out there and talk to people. And I know, probably cutting myself off at the feet here, but I know I'm not the best about getting out and talking to people on a one-on-one basis. But I am committed to doing that more. I mean, I've attended football games and worked at the snack bar and gone to plays and supported music events and gone to the top 10 dinners and, you know, a variety of things that I tend to migrate to. But I think it's really more important to get out to the schools when the parents are going to be there for open house and make sure that you make yourself available to talk to people and listen to people. It's really important that they feel comfortable coming to you. I loved what Mr. Bruno said about, you know, gosh, let's keep this open dialogue going. This is fabulous. I'm so glad that we got all this information. We need to build that more with our parents and families as well. And I guess the only way to do that is to just get out there and talk to people and make sure that they know you're available and that you're listening and that you are not just listening, but you're responding. It's nothing worse than filing a complaint or making a suggestion and nobody even responds, you know? It's like, well, why did I bother? So if people are going to provide information, it's really imperative for us to respond to that information in an organized manner. I know that when I was the board president, it was my responsibility to respond to community requests, and I think that that's a really good policy to follow, that we're keeping one standard response and that we're not giving mixed messages or all over the board. So sometimes it feels like people are not responding, when in actuality what we're doing is we're ensuring that our response is collaborative and accurate before responding. So yeah, listen, put yourself out there and make sure you respond.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mrs. Pope.
Hello, Kelly.
Hello.
Let me do this so you can hear me. Please summarize the strengths you bring as a member of the board.
Okay. So I did spend 8 years on the board here, and enjoyed every minute of it, and I think I contributed a lot to this district, as well as learned a lot from the district. In addition to that, I have 11 years of experience working in education as an administrative assistant. I worked with the maintenance and operations department. I worked with the finance department. I worked with the student services department, all three completely different environments within the district. And so I have a really well-rounded experience in what goes on in the various departments and offices within the district. And I come from a family of educators. I love to teach myself. I've taken many opportunities to teach classes in computers when I've had a chance to teach to my peers at work. My grandmother was the first teacher in the state of Arizona, and my father was a teacher, my sister's a teacher, and we are just a very strong believers in education as a whole. In addition to that, I come with a new perspective, and that is from public health, where I've learned so many things, not just about public health, but about procedures and data and collaboration, and just how to really work well as a team, how to analyze data and use it in your decision making. And bottom line is that I really take the job seriously, and I analyze everything. I obviously always read at least the board packet, and if not further research beyond that, to make sure that I'm understanding what the decisions are that we're needing to make. And then, as I just mentioned, in addition to that, I will make a commitment right here and now that I will get out and talk to the community, talk to parents and students and families, and bring that into my decision making as a board member. And that's two.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Howard?
Hi, Howard.
My wife told me to speak more, she'll like it.
Shall I repeat the question?
Big one?
Should I repeat the
Yes,
question?
please.
Okay. Please summarize the strengths you bring as a member of the board.
So I think in terms of adverbs and adjectives, honesty, dependency, partiality, dedication, and I could go on and on and on. I think all of them are key to being an effective board member, and I believe I have all those traits, which I feel are a strength that you're inquiring about. I have a passion and deep interest in the mission of the district, strong stewardship to others, and the ability to understand the budget. More personally, my involvement with the district over the years has been, if you see the banner behind me, the sesquicentennial. I was a member of that committee in that 1858. I was actively involved in verifying that was the actual date of the year that this district was established. I didn't vote for that banner, though. I'm sorry. That was, we had like 6 or 8 or 10, and they were all great, and this one's great. I love this one, but I didn't vote for that banner. Since 2008, I became involved in promoting Measure N, a $500,000 school bond that was passed by this community, and I've been active on that. Was asked by this board.
Just point of clarification.
Beg pardon?
I think that was 500 million, right?
500.
You're talking about the school bond authorization? Because 500,000 wouldn't get as much.
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
We knew what you did.
I'm sorry. I'm a little nervous. It is 500. $1.5 billion. How's that? Okay. The $1.5 billion school bond, which is hopefully going to take us with school construction in this district, hopefully through the next 30 years. So I've been involved on that committee pretty much since the committee I was asked to participate at the first grouping, the first set of terms of people that are participating on that committee. Last year I was voted by the committee to be the vice chair. And also besides the Sesquicentennial and the BOC, I was also for a period of time up to about, I'm not sure when, you might remember better than I, but was one of two of the community members that was part of the IT advisory committee. So that's been my personal involvement, and those I believe are some of the strengths that I would bring to this board.
Thank you. We have one question left. Mr. Bruno, do you want me to take it or do you want to take it?
Go ahead.
Okay. So, identify a recent board decision that you felt strongly about and tell us how you would balance the community concerns with state and federal law, student concerns, staff concerns. How, on a controversial issue, how would you balance all?
Funny, you should bring up that question. We have this thing we're going through right now called COVID. You might have heard of it. The discussion this evening by this board is a perfect example of such decision making that has to take place. And my position is to do what is best for the children, do what's best for the staff and the community. It was interesting to hear this evening the discussion around when to return. In fact, I had the opportunity to speak briefly with Superintendent Lair about a little bit about some of the plans going forward, and looking at what this district has done in relationship to other districts, and I've been trying to keep abreast of that in keeping up with current news, is not necessarily that everything should fit into one box, one square box. I think that the current path that this district is taking, I was especially very interested in the surveys that were conducted. I think that was a great approach to find out how your teachers, your students, your staff feel about moving forward and which direction they would they feel that they need to go, and to taking that all into account in your decision-making process. So with that said, I think it's extremely important to balance community needs and the students and the faculty, and at the same time adhering to state, local, federal laws as well as any Board of Education regulations. So as it relates to my personal beliefs, I think that what should transpire and what take place is that this board as a body should work together in determining what is best for the district based on the information that you're receiving from staff, and I think that you folks are doing a really good job thus far.
Thank you. Kelly?
Could you repeat it?
Sure. So identify a recent board decision you felt strongly about and describe how you would balance community concerns, state and federal law, staff considerations, student needs. So if there's like a controversial, how would you balance all of those points of view and deal with it?
So it seems redundant to talk about COVID again, but really that is first and foremost in everyone's mind, and it's definitely controversial, and it's definitely extremely important. And, you know, I'd love to say we need to do what's best for the students and community and faculty, but it's really not very clear what's best or what they want. You get complete polar opposite, you know, opinions. Why aren't we open yet? My child needs to go to school. It's way too soon. You know, we need to open now. It's just here. People are dying. I mean, the coin just flips back and forth and back and forth. So how do you analyze them? And like Howard, I'm sorry, I don't know Howard's last name, but as Howard said, the surveys were fabulous. The input from the teachers. Thank you, CUTA, for providing, you know, a means for the board to hear from the teachers. And all of that information is critical. And even with all of that information, it still can get heated. It still could be, you know, polarizing. People not agreeing on what's the right thing. There comes a point where you have to absorb all the information that you possibly can and make a decision based on that. And then once the board makes a decision as a board, then it's all for one. It's not one for all, it's all for one. You know, whatever the board decision is, then we are all behind that decision 100%. Up to that point, you really have to just do your research, do your debate, make your points, get your opinion in there, and really just thrash it all out. I mean, sometimes putting an opinion out there is what gets your opinion changed, because it opens the door to constructive and healthy conversation, which is what happens in these board meetings, is healthy and constructive conversation. So in addition to all the data and your own opinions and your own feelings about what is right and what is wrong, you do have to work together as a board and make those decisions and then stand by those decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right.
We're very lucky to have such strong candidates for as many positions as we have.
All right, so we've asked all the questions. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
It's going to be a hard choice.
This is true.
I think it's a hard choice, and I want you to pick me.
Well, it truly is a hard choice. Both of you have experience. Both of you have experience in different ways. One of the things that, and if I'm out of order, tell me, Scott, I don't think I'm out of order. I thought both of you gave great response to question 5, just my own personal bias. One of the things I think is important, earlier in the meeting, I called Kelly back on purpose, because one of the things that neither one of you said, that a part of really being effective, I think, is showing other people respect. I know both of you believe that, so I'm not saying you don't, but the reason why earlier I pulled Kelly back was to demonstrate that, you know, Kelly and I have always gotten along. We served on the same board. We didn't always agree, but we always treated people with respect. And I think if that had been in any other forum, when, especially on an emotional issue like this, they degenerate into shouting matches, name-calling, things like that. So I think on my way out the door, I wanted to take a chance, regardless of which one of you gets picked. I really believe that's why this board and this staff and this school district has worked the way that it has. Even when I haven't agreed with somebody, you know, and I jokingly always pick Mrs. Woods or whatever, I've always tried to treat everybody with respect. Now, the truth is, we get along, we sit next to each other at the football games, we probably don't disagree that much other than when we're ribbing each other. But the point is that's, I won't be here, so I guess it won't be my problem. But that's kind of the legacy that I want. I did that on purpose to illustrate, because I really think that has been a strength of us as a team, not just this board, but the teachers, CUTA, CSEA, we have made a deliberate effort to treat each other with respect. Now, does that mean sometimes I don't like Marie a little bit more because she brings me Coca-Cola chocolate cake? Well, that's a different discussion. But I only bring that not to take us astray, but regardless of who gets picked, and there's another seat coming back, I would love when I'm away to know that regardless of who's making what choices, that respect for everybody is still there. And so I'll take one thing out of order, but before I can declare it out of order, it'll be out of my mouth. So I do love all of you, and I will miss you. So with that, do we have any more discussion on this or any motion?
I have a comment to make. When I received the packets, I looked them over, and actually the comment that I made to the superintendent was, not only do we have 2 candidates who are both legally qualified, we have 2 candidates who are well qualified. And after having interviewed you guys, that opinion has not changed. You guys are both really well qualified, and whichever one of you doesn't get chosen, please apply for the upcoming vacancy. I would welcome working with either one of you.
I did what he said.
Yeah, exactly. Come back at the next meeting, please. All right, do we have a motion on the floor? Or, I know we don't have a motion. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Okay, Ms. Pope.
Again, please, there's another seat next month. But I do a motion for Kelly Kelly.
Okay, we have a motion for Kelly Kelly. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second by Mrs. Anderson. All right, and I will do this the same way we did it last time, unless you don't want to. Last time we took multiple.
Can I say something with that?
Sure.
That doesn't reflect anything on you, Howard. Please come back for the next position. I mean, no offense, I really don't. It's really a tough decision.
Okay. Do we have another motion? All right. So what we did last time, we took multiple motions, and I will do the unusual thing. I think Howard at least deserves a motion, so I will make the motion that we also consider Howard. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All right, so we have 2 motions on the floor. We'll vote on them in order. The first motion that was made was for Kelly Kelly. Any discussion on Kelly Kelly specifically, or do we just want to vote? Just
do you want to just...
Is it the pleasure of the board to just simply vote on it, or do you want to discuss it?
We can just vote.
Okay, so we have...
If somebody wants to discuss it, is there any discussion we can have?
So if there's not, all right, so Mrs. Anderson, there is a motion and a second to confirm Kelly Kelly to take this spot. How do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, Mrs. Anderson is aye. Mrs. Pope?
Aye.
Mrs. Pope is aye. Mr. Bruno? Aye. Mr. Bruno is aye, so I guess I will do the same thing that I did the last time. I see the writing on the wall, so unanimous it is. But Howard, I think, congratulations to Kelly Kelly, but Howard, I think you've heard enough from this board tonight that you will be well served coming back next month, and I do not believe I'm out of order saying that. I think we all know the service to your district, your service to the district. Got to go over it a little bit. A lot of it was behind the scenes, but I think through this process you've proved to the people here that you would be the leading candidate for next month. So thank you for your time and your effort, and do not go away.
Yes.
We won't let him.
Okay.
Howard, please
You
don't
might not even have anybody left to be up against.
All right, so future meeting dates, regular meeting is Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Here. Are there any suggested agenda items?
So there is the item on there for the governing board, so we would have you guys made a determination, but we would vote on the resolution that appoints her to that position.
That's right, okay. So, keep that in mind, we'll go back to that. So, do we have a motion on, so we already have the motion to make the person that's filling the seat Kelly, but I guess we need to go through a paperwork thing of putting it in the actual resolution.
Correct.
All right. I figured we'd do that at once, but maybe not. So, do we have a motion to appoint in the resolution Kelly?
Yes, a motion.
We have a motion by Mrs. Pope. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second by Mrs. Anderson. I believe we've discussed this, but just in case, any discussion? Do we have unanimous consent?
Yes.
All right. So, we're done with that. So, any suggested agenda items for the November 18th meeting? Not hearing any. We don't have any reason for continuation of closed session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
All motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Bruno. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mrs. Anderson. Do we have unanimous consent?
Yes, sir.
This meeting is adjourned at, I just realized it's past 9, at 9:07.
Donald, this is your longest meeting ever.